Good morning, sports fans. You're listening to 96.9 FM WHYR LP Baton Rouge Community Radio.
This is Eric Hatfield along with Coach Perry Daniels, and we are here to bring you the latest, the greatest, the best, and the most entertaining in high school, college, and professional sports. You are listening to Louisiana All American Sports. Good morning, Baton Rouge. Today is Saturday, March 8th, 2014, and welcome to another edition of Louisiana All American Sports. This is Eric Hatfield, and I'm along with Coach Perry Daniels, and we have another fantastic Saturday of sports fun and sports news and sports action for you. Area code 225-343-9927, 225-343-9927 if you would like to get in on the conversation.
Eric, it's a beautiful day outside, man. We've got the two-time defending 5A state champions head coach calling in at about 11:15 today. Coach Carlos Sample from the Scotlandville Hornets.
I wish I knew that. I'd have had some bee sound effects. Congratulations. They beat an excellent McKinley team. We brought McKinley to you a couple of times this year on LouisianaAllAmericanSports.com. They played great defense. Scotlandville got bottled up a little bit. What, they scored 49 points, I believe it was?
Right.
So they didn't blow them to smithereens like they've done to most teams, but they helped McKinley to 29. So there's some pretty bad mamma jammas.
Right. So we're going to run down all of the scores of the games for the teams that qualified for the Final Four in their respective classifications. So we're going to start with Family Christian in Class C. Family Christian lost last night, man. Our good friend Jamie Holmes. Coach Holmes, another fantastic season with the Family Christian Crusaders. The score last night was 83-74. Atlanta beat Family Christian.
Wow.
A lot of points put up in that game, huh? Terrence Sapp scored a game-high 29 points, and Kentrell Sapp had 25, as third-seeded Atlanta outscored 11-seed Family Christian Academy 32-19 in the fourth quarter. 32 points in one quarter.
That's 8 minutes of basketball.
Wow.
You don't see it in the NBA at some levels.
They earned their Atlanta earns a berth in the semifinals. That game will be played Tuesday night in Lake Charles, and there Atlanta will take on New Living Word. On the other half of the bracket there, you've got the Elizabeth Summerfield winner taking on Sicily Island. So that is Class C. In Class B, we have advancing to the semifinals. We have Florin, Fairview Weston. Florin will take on Fairview Weston, and Anacoco will take on Midland.
Those are traditional powerhouses in Class B, right?
Class B,
Florin and Anacoco, yeah.
That's correct. In Class 1A, we have Country Day outlast Christian Life last night. The defending Class 1A state champion, Country Day, kept its hopes of a repeat alive with a 47-42 victory over the Christian Life Crusaders.
Yeah, our good friend, Coach Stephen Dale, who's been kind enough to join us on the show a couple of times, and we've also had Christian Life on LouisianaAllAmericanSports.com. We knew that was going to be a tough battle going in, but if ever there were a home court advantage, it was last night. Country Day, going into last night, was 12-0 at home this year. They had not dropped a game at home, so I'm willing to bet that was probably the tipper between these two really good teams.
Hey, man, and remember that game we did about 3 years ago down at Country Day?
Yes.
On LouisianaAllAmericanSports.com.
Yes, that was
Madison
Prep. Yep,
taking on Country Day.
Double overtime, it was decided by Roman Guy steal and a break to the basket with a couple of seconds remaining. 21.8 seconds. 21.8 seconds to go in the second overtime. Madison Prep hanging on to a 2-point lead. Country Day has possession of the basketball. Every Country Day student appears to be on their feet. Interestingly, the crew that made that hopped on the chuck wagon from Madison Avenue seems very calm. They're all seated. A looping pass in the backcourt to Jack Koch. He's being guarded by Roman Guy. 19 seconds. Roman Guy with the steal. Roman Guy off the glass. I do it. this one's over. Madison Prep with 10 seconds to go has just sealed the ball game. 58-54, 6 seconds. Brandon Womack for three. It's going to go off no good. Rebound Dwayne Jenkins with 1.1 seconds to go. And we'll be taking this one back to Madison Avenue in a dramatic double overtime game. Look, we know Country Day can play some ball, and that house was rocking. So I'm sure the home crowd helped them out a lot last night.
And check this out. They're headed for a possible collision course because Madison Prep advanced last night.
Oh, man, that's going to be good.
So but Madison Prep has to get by a very, very good Lafayette Christian team that beat Madison Prep here in Baton Rouge earlier this year.
Let me tell you, Lafayette Christian, even going back to last year and the year before, has been an arch nemesis for Madison Prep. The difference is Madison Prep had a future NBA player in Jarrell Martin on the team. Now Brandon Sampson is very good. They have, and so is Uric Lazar. It's going to be tough. I'm looking forward to that matchup.
Yeah, it should be very good. One thing we've got to mention about that Country Day Christian Life game last night, Jonathan Stove scores 19 points in a loss for Christian Life, and that will end his high school career.
Great career for that young man, and I think ULL's getting a good one. I'll tell you, ULL's going to be in. They've always been competitive. What are they in the Southland? I think they are.
Southland.
They've always been competitive in that Southland Conference. They're getting a couple of good players because I believe I forget his name, but a key player for Country Day, their leading guy, I believe, is also a ULL committee. I cannot remember that young man's name though.
Well, also in that conference, also ULL is talking to Nick Parker. So that could be the straw to stir the drink.
That's going to be a good team if they get all three of those kids.
So, Madison Prep advances in 1A, as we mentioned. Brandon Sampson led all scores at Delhi last night with 20 points. Josh Anderson had 15 to earn the third-seeded Madison Prep a spot in the semifinals. Madison Prep improves to 24-8, and they defeated 6-seeded Delhi.
So this is now the Madison Prep Academy Chargers' third consecutive year advancing to the state semifinals or higher in their classification. This time a higher class in 1A, but nonetheless, this is a team. This is becoming a machine now.
That's correct. That's correct. In Class 2A, man, the Baton Rouge area, if you consider St. James the Baton Rouge area, they advanced to the semifinals. Lowell Narcissus scored 20 points, and DeQuan Sandolph added 15.
Wait,
St. James.
Terry, they have a key player named Narcissist?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
Narcisse.
Okay, my bad. I was going to have some fun with that one.
Yeah, that's my bad. Okay. So,
sorry about that.
So, look, man, they're a 14 seed, and they have advanced to the semifinals. Awesome job to St. James. Next, they'll take on Lakeview in Lake Charles. And that game will be Thursday night. So Class 3A, man, we mentioned Nick Parker earlier.
Right.
They took a fall last night. Coach Ricard, hey, man, we can't thank you enough.
Yes,
we
sir.
enjoy ourselves every time we come out to Port Allen. And we really were rooting for you guys, hoping you guys advance. You had a fantastic season. That whole staff, the whole Port Allen community has just been really good to us here.
I agree. They've been pretty much, we don't have an exclusive anymore, but they've been pretty much our featured act, I'd say, on Louisiana All American Sports.com. And it's just a great environment to watch basketball. The community is great. That team I really had a lot of fun watching this team play this year, and they have a lot of good underclassmen who will be back next year. They got a nice program out there. If you live in West Baton Rouge Parish and you enjoy amateur athletics, check out the Port Allen Pelicans. They are just a lot of fun to watch. Congratulations on a great season. It's always tough to lose, but I did check out, did a little recon on Ridgewood, and I knew the Pelicans would have their hands full, and when you consider the 4 hours of traveling they had to do, that's going to put that's going to weigh down any team. So, look, that's why you have seeding, and the higher seed got the home court. Congratulations on a great season for the Pelicans.
So Ridgewood is the 4th seed, and they jumped out to an 11-2 early lead and never looked back as they continued its drive to win a 3rd state title in the last 6 years. So, it's not like you lost a chopped liver.
No, not at all.
Reginald Johnson for Ridgewood, he continued his hot streak during the playoffs with 40 points.
What was the final score again?
40 points. He scored 40 of the 79 Ridgewood points.
Wow.
And 12 rebounds.
Wow. Well, that kid, I don't even know anything about him, but I've seen Port Allen and how they play and how you just don't score points at will on them. I'm assuming this kid is going to some college somewhere if he can run up 40 points in a playoff game against that Port Allen team.
Right. Salmon High out of the Slidell. Moving on to, let's go to 3A first, where the U High Cubs advance.
Good for them.
And that is a great team. They're young, they're energetic, and they were able to win last night, 86 to 66, as they defeated
Westlake.
Yep. And U High is advancing. They play. That game is going to be Thursday night. Also coming out of 3A, Donaldsonville.
Oh, I did not know that they were that good this year.
Neither did
just
I,
now.
Eric. Yeah, they were an 8 seed, but the Donaldsonville Tigers they have to take on Richwood.
So they must have rubbed out the 1 seed then. They must
Yes.
have. Wow.
Yes.
Go ahead, Donaldsonville. Good for y'all. I like to hear Baton Rouge area teams doing well.
Right. So they take out. They're challenging Richwood, and that game is Thursday night in Lake Charles. And on the other half of that bracket, you'll have U High taking on Bossier. And that game will be a 6:15 game Thursday night.
You know, it just goes to show rumors of U High's death were greatly exaggerated. We talked about how Port Allen a couple of teams, McKinley, Port Allen, a couple of teams sucker punched them in that very competitive 7-3-8 district. But you know what? They start off the season ranked at the highest for a reason, and they start off with the target on their back as the hunt head instead of the hunters for a reason, and the cream has clearly risen to the top.
That's right. So we'll see what they can do against Bossier, who's been there a few times. And has won it all, so we'll see what happens Thursday night.
Kind of shocked that Bossier's only a 3A.
Right. Yeah. They fluctuated the last couple of years. I think the last seeding they were 4A the last time they reclassed.
Makes sense.
So this year, in Class 4A, advancing, running into that juggernaut that the Bel Air Bengals ran into in New Orleans, Landry Walker advances over Salmon High. That score was 63 to 55. Landry Walker defeated Salmon. Salmon's a very good team out of Slidell, always near the top.
In every sport.
St. Thomas More defeated Tioga 51 to 43 to advance. So Landry Walker will take on St. Thomas More next Wednesday night. Northside, an 11 seed, advanced. They beat Peabody 57-55, which sounds like it was a great game. Peabody loses, and they are a traditional powerhouse for those of you listening around the country. Peabody is a school out of Alexandria, and they just have a number of state championships and state championship appearances. And Northside will take on East Jefferson, who defeated Huntington 70 to 58.
That's going to be. I think they're going to meet their Waterloo against EJ. I've watched Northside. They're one of those schools that start off almost like they didn't know. The left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing, and they seem to get better towards the end of the year, which is key in any sport, but especially high school basketball. East Jeff's going to be tough. I think the dream is over. The Cinderella story ends there. But congratulations congratulations for getting the top 28. That's incredible.
That is awesome. And now for the big boys, we have Natchitoches Central defeated East Ascension 57 to 53 to see a Baton Rouge area team take a fall last night. Coach Kenny Allman, great season as usual.
Right.
Just came up a little short. Thibodeau defeats Dutchtown 56 to 54, and the Griffins in their season, and they've had a great season as well, Eric. They came out of that tough 5A.
That was McKinley's district 5A. Yeah.
Right. And they just really played well all year. And it's sad to see them take that loss.
That whole district went up in smoke last night then. East Ascension, McKinley, and Dutchtown.
Right.
Whew, man.
But congratulations to Coach Patrick Hill of the Dutchtown Griffins. He's done a fantastic job. St. Aug defeats Higgins 57 to 43.
Yeah.
And they are the one lone team on the one lone blemish on the Scotlandville Hornet resume.
Right.
And they are headed for a rematch Tuesday night in Lake Charles. Scotlandville will take on St. Aug at 6 o'clock in Lake Charles.
That is going to be epic, man. That's going to be epic.
So, hey, man, why don't you talk us into a break? I'm going to get Coach Sample on the telephone, and we're going to interview the two-time defending Class 5A state champion, Carlos Sample, who's the head coach of the Scotlandville Hornets.
Well, I certainly can talk us into a break. I can talk into a lot of things. We have a lot coming up here on Louisiana All American Sports today. We're going to talk some more NBA today than we really have all year long, as the NBA action is really heating up and the drama's starting to build a little bit. As you can see, there was some telling action last night. I won't say great action. There were a lot of blowouts yesterday. We'll talk about that. The Houston Rockets made mincemeat out of Indiana, further convincing me that the Eastern Conference is just does not prepare its top teams to face the Western Conference as well as they could. We're going to poke fun at a little Eastern Conference basketball later today. Of course, our LSU Tigers have their regular season finale today as they host the visiting Georgia Bulldogs. Georgia beat LSU in Athens earlier this year. LSU looked very lethargic earlier. However, LSU's been playing much better the last few weeks, ever since a very narrow overtime loss at Kentucky in Lexington. This LSU Tigers team appears to have turned a corner. They came back from a 16-point deficit at Vanderbilt on Thursday night. Johnny O'Brien went legend mode with 25 points. We are certainly going to talk about our LSU Tigers basketball. Some big matches in college basketball coming up today. North Carolina and Duke, of course. The game of the millennium. Well, not really, but it's always good, and the Tar Heels have been hot as of late. So that's going to be interesting to watch. LSU baseball, as they have the second game of their their 3-game series, hosting the Purdue Boilermakers at Alex Box Stadium. And the New Orleans Saints had to part ways with some veterans of that Super Bowl 44 championship team. So those numbers are getting thinner and thinner. And but you know, that's such is life and such is the business of football. So we are going to move. Do we have Coach on the line?
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna postpone that break. Then I didn't talk us into a break. I talked us into an interview. We're gonna have Coach Carlos Sample of the two-time defending classification 5A champion Scotlandville Hornets. He is on the line with us now. They defeated McKinley last night to head to the top 28 yet again. Coach Sample, good morning. Can you hear us okay?
Good morning. How you doing?
Fantastic, Coach. And I know you're doing, but probably not as fantastic as you're doing.
I can't hear you.
I said probably not as fantastic as you're doing. Can you hear me all right?
Oh, yeah, we're feeling pretty good right about now.
Well, Coach, look, just I guess we talked about the box score. I know it was a standing room only crowd. I have a couple of people in the Baton Rouge area, myself included, who saw a line out of the door before game time and realized that buying a ticket would be futile. Tell us about last night.
Well, the atmosphere was just, a basketball atmosphere. Just a tremendous game, between two tremendous schools, and we were just happy and fortunate enough that we were able to host the game on our home court. These guys worked their butts off 24/7, and just to have an opportunity to play a third game on our own home floor, means a whole lot, and we rolled that on in.
Hey, Coach, it seems like that you and your staff have done a fantastic job this year with a team that doesn't look on the surface quite as talented as the previous 2 years. Can you talk about that in this group of guys?
Yeah, this is a special group, and this year we were all about team. The past few years, we've had four Division I players last year. We have guys that came back this year. We hadn't had a Division I player on the team this year, but we know it's all about team, and it's all about working their butts off from the first week of school up until the season starts. And I just have to give those kids all the credit. We just manage them, but they just follow suit and they do an outstanding job of competing with one another on and off the floor and just motivating one another to get better. So I just commend my kids on their behavior.
Coach, it seems like the Scotlandville Hornets don't rebuild, they reload. I mean, you guys lost Traylon Banks, Jared Sam, Damian Jones. Was he on last year's team, I believe?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, lost Damian Jones. I mean, those were and then Cleveland Thomas from 2 years before. That's a whole Division I starting
you
lineup.
About Bridgewater, Eric.
Yeah, right. Thank you. I forgot all about Brian Bridgewater. My bad. I mean, how could I forget him? But you lost some players, and then I know you still have Ezekiel Brown, and he's gotten a lot of playing time since he was a sophomore. But how do you guys reload so well? That's just a lot of talent to keep rotating, and here you are in the top 28 yet again.
Yeah, well, I mean, we bring kids come here as freshmen, you know, and they work the butts off, and you know, we let them know you work day in and day out, and when your number is pulled, it's time to perform, and we take pride in what we do. We try to have a class organization program, and you know, and we want kids that buy into what we do. You know, we don't want kids to come to Scotlandville that don't want to work.
Right.
You know, it's about working, and the level of expectations are very high, and we really don't lower them, you know, and they work hard, and win, lose, or draw, you know, I can sleep at night, and they can too, to know that we put 130% in everything we do.
130%,
Awesome.
I like that.
Awesome. Hey, Coach, we have a lot of people that listen from around the country. Can you just kind of tell them how many years in a row has the Scotlandville Hornets appeared in the Top 28 tournament here in Louisiana?
Right now, this is our 5th year that we've been to the semifinals. The first 2 years, we lost the first 2 years. So, you know, you can learn a lot more from losing, you know, than winning. At some point in time in life, you're gonna have to learn more failure than success. And I think we've learned what it takes after those 2 years, just determined and just wanting to get back to championship basketball, and we want to play at a championship level, so we have to have the championship mindset. And I think that's a big part of the success that we've had the last 5 years.
Awesome. Can you tell me, regarding your personal situation, do you have any aspirations to move on to the next level of college of basketball coaching? Yeah. I mean, it's always a time and a place for things, you know, and you know, if God's will is done, you know, I'll be on a college level. But I mean, I'm not out searching and looking, and you know, I'm content where I am. But if the opportunity comes and permits itself, it would have to be the right time and situation, you know, for my wife and my family, you know, and that's a decision that we would get together and pray about it and make, you know, when it comes. But you know, it's out there and possibility, you know. But as of right now, I can tell you that Scotlandville has Coach Sample, and I'm working 130% every day I come to this school. Awesome, and it is showing off, man. A fantastic job. Last week, man, we had the athletic director of Southern University on explaining their situation regarding their postseason ban. And I know you're an alumnus of Southern University. Do you have any thoughts and opinions on that situation there?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm just kind of emotional because my brother is the head coach, and the situation that they're in, it affects me also as well, knowing, you know, the way that the things are going up there. But you know, it's something that's beyond their control, something that was done in the past. But I mean, I think they didn't drop the ball, you know, the athletic department per se, you know, and it's kind of tough, but you know, that's when the real test character come out, when these tough times, you know. So they're gonna get through it and move on, and Southern will be back again.
How does you and your brother, how do you and your brother become such great coaches, man? It's like, was your father a high school coach?
It's like the Manning family. It's in the blood, Perry.
I guess just both of us being competitive, being students of the game, you know, coming from parents with coaching backgrounds, you know, just parents just instilling us leadership skills and qualities, and you know, and growing us, raising us to be productive young men, independent men, and that means a lot with teaching us character and integrity, you know, things that I'm very critical of parents nowadays, because you know, the priorities are not in order, you know, and we got to find a way to get to our communities, to get our priorities straight and value education more like we did back in the day.
Coach, well, I'll say this much. Folks like yourself and a lot of these fine high school coaches are a big part of steering those kids in the right direction. And when you hear integrity, responsibility, you hear those words so much, sometimes it's like blah, 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 blah. But it's a cliche for a reason because it's important. It's part of what helps a community raise kids. Coach, I got a question. For some of our maybe not part of the Scotlandville community, but they open the sports page and they try to keep up with the high school scene. Your casual high school basketball fan, if you will. What would you say? I think a lot of folks probably knew your roster. They were almost like household names for those folks. As I mentioned, Ezekiel Brown's a holdover, but who are some of the other key contributors on this year's Hornets team?
Well, I've had the junior guard LaMarcus Lee. Came in and has done an outstanding job this year. His first experience of varsity. He played a little bit last year, but his role is totally changed. And I have to commend. I have two sophomores that played. This is their first year playing varsity. That's Jordan Adabutu and Garrett Green. I mean, they have really, really turned my eyes, man. And they'll probably be college prospects because they're only sophomores and they're going on to get better, and they have held their own more so the whole season, battling against, I think we probably played the toughest schedule in the state. We look at the top 28. I mean, we played most of the teams in there, Landry, Walker, Riverside, St. Aug twice. We played Higgins, Madison Prep. I mean, we played everybody. We've taken everybody's best shot, and these young men have taken it and have been humble and just, I just hats off to my guys,
Yes, sir. Hey, Coach, couple more questions, then we're going to let you go. We know you're a busy man. The first question is, talk a little bit about the matchup against St. Aug Tuesday night.
Yeah, we split with them this past season, this season, and we're just looking forward to the matchup. I mean, we're familiar with them, they're familiar with us, and we're looking forward to it's going to be a challenge, a very well-coached, well-balanced team, and, it's going to be a challenge. We just have to get our game plan together and go out and execute it to the best of our abilities and see what we can do.
Okay. Well, Coach, we'd like to thank you for taking the time to come this morning. I do have one other question. Last night we couldn't work things out for the Louisiana All American Sports.com broadcast, but I definitely want to talk about Tuesday night's broadcast. Are Eric and I welcome to come do that for the Scotlandville faithful?
I'll try to put a plug in for you. I would have to give my AD principal and see what the rules are with the association. But yeah, I would love that, to get people back home who can't make the game a little play-by-play or something. So we can talk about it, and hopefully we can make it happen.
Awesome. Okay, great job, Coach. Thank you for joining us. I'll give you a call later on this afternoon or tomorrow. Tomorrow will probably be better regarding those arrangements.
Okay, thanks so much for having me on the show. I appreciate it. Every time we get a chance to talk about Scotlandville Magnet High School, I jump to the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Thanks a million, Coach. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
That was Coach Carlos Sample of the two-time defending Class 5A champion Scotlandville Hornets. We will have a brief intermission. We'll be back in about 90 seconds. You are listening to 96.9 FM WHYR Baton Rouge Community Radio. This is Louisiana All American Sports.
Yo, they want to know who's that girl? Come on. Come on. Who's that girl? What's my name?
Yeah, bringing it back in the day with a little Ice Cube, and it sure is a good day. It's always a good day for sports here in Baton Rouge. 343-9927, area code 225-343-9927 if you'd like to join in the conversation. We have a regular friend of the show, our female eyes and ears on the line. We'll be joining you very, very shortly. And here we go. That's right. Who's that girl? Good morning.
All right, we're ready to jump into the top 5 things that were on a female's mind while watching sports this past week, Eric.
Wait, how many things on a lady's mind?
5.
5?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
5.
Well, let's jump on into it.
The top 5 things that were on a woman's mind while watching sports this past week. Number 5.
What the heck do you mean Darren Sproles won't be playing in my backfield anymore?
Number 4.
Were the Lakers doctor game checked for not showing up the other night against the Clippers? 48-point loss? Really?
Number 3.
Does Lance Moore know that he doesn't have to work? I'll take care of him.
Oh.
Number 2.
Who's the NBA MVP? LeBron or Durant? I'll take them both. And that P ain't for player.
And the number 1 thing that was on a female's mind while watching sports this past week is...
What the heck do you mean Darren Sproles will be running punts up my sideline no more?
Thank you so much. Those are the top 5 things that were on a woman's mind while watching sports this past week.
Oh, who's that girl? Yeah, come on, come on. Come on. What's my name?
Oh, yeah. Who's that girl? Who's that lady? That was, what do you mean, Darren Sproles ain't going to be running up my sideline anymore? Oh, man. Yes, indeed. I always love that part. Oh,
We're going to get to some of that, Saints fans. We understand that's a big to-do.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate cost of progress. It's money. The salary cap is real, and so is money, and that's the reality of professional football. We will be discussing that a little later today. 225-343-9927. 225-343-9927. If you'd like to get in on the conversation, but right now we have it's Saturday morning, so you know what that means. Okay, that means I need to learn how to plug in cables better. Let's take 2 on that. It's Saturday morning, and you know what that means.
Well, Eric.
There we go. College basketball on CBS and ESPN and everywhere else around the country. We have a lot of good college basketball games coming up today. Let's start off, though, with our LSU Tigers.
No. Let's start off with our Southern University Jaguars.
Okay, go ahead. Fire away.
Yeah, our Southern University Jaguars are 15-2, 19-11 overall. And today they play their last home game against Texas Southern. And Baton Rouge faithful, go out and support these Jaguars. They've been through a really tough season, and they still they're fortunate enough to be able to play in the SWAC tournament. They could still win that. Today is senior day, and the Southern University Jaguars have 4 seniors that have been through a lot up there in this program. It starts off with forward Malcolm Miller, who was chosen to be the SWAC Most Valuable Player at the beginning of the season, and now he's starting to live up to that. Center Javon Mitchell, guard Yandarius Johnson, and Bryce Clark are all seniors and will be honored this afternoon in their game against Texas Southern. Texas Southern is 11-6. They are the 2nd seed going into the SWAC tournament. So they really need to win tonight because Arkansas Pine Bluff is right behind them with a 10-7 record. So they could actually catch Texas Southern and gain that 2nd seed going into the SWAC tournament. So just great job by Coach Banks, Carlos Sample's brother, and the Southern University Jaguars as they play their final home game and can get to 20 wins on the season if they win tonight at 5:30 in the F.G. Clark Activity Center.
So that's that's the silver lining in the dark cloud on the bluff, because for all this effort, well, let's just hope they can win the SWAC and top out this season as best they possibly can. You know,
Right.
they still have a goal.
And until they win the SWAC tournament, Eric, the rest of it is irrelevant.
We could be crying over spilled milk.
That's right.
On the other side of town, the LSU Tigers, I'll tell you, I wish I had a cuckoo clock effect, cuckoo, because you don't know which Tiger team is going to show up. They do appear, though, to be turning a little bit of a corner. I mean, and third, you know, I think it all started with the Kentucky game a couple of weeks ago where they took Kentucky into overtime. They really let it slip. It was on them. And, you know, then they got kind of pounded by Florida last week. Of course, that's not new for anybody that faces Florida. But then they manned up. They didn't roll over. They went to Vanderbilt. We know LSU has struggled badly on the road this year. I believe, and this is off the top of my head, their only other road SEC win was at Ole Miss. But LSU came out there. They fell down 16 points early to Vanderbilt, and Johnny O'Brien III decided just to put the team on his back and march right back in that game, getting LSU a victory. And I think it's another one of those little baby steps that indicates a possible turning of the corner for the LSU Tigers. The regular season finale is today at the Pete Maravich Assembly Center. Of course, it is senior day, and we'll be saying, you know, not a whole lot of key seniors we'll be saying goodbye to, but it's always good to get out there and support those guys who have been along for the whole ride. Today's game will be broadcast at 4 p.m. on Fox Sports Network and on ESPN3 against the Georgia Bulldogs. These Bulldogs are not very good. They do have a winning record in SEC play, but they've really piled that record together by beating the teams they're supposed to beat. You know, the SEC East, not the SEC East, I'm sorry, the SEC basketball is definitely having a down year. They got wins, you know, they beat Auburn, they beat Mississippi State. I'm sorry, earlier I said our only road win, LSU's only road win was at Ole Miss. That's wrong, it was at Auburn, my mistake. But, you know, they beat, you know, Missouri, who's kind of funky this year. You know,
ranked 21 in the nation.
Well, they've climbed up out of that out of that funk. So I mean, they're not incompetent. I don't want to call them incompetent, but I wouldn't exactly call them good either. Their measurements are not that great. They don't score a lot of points. You know, they lost at Tennessee a little while ago and got hammered pretty hard. Could only muster up 48 points against a struggling Tennessee team. So you just don't know who's going to show up. You know, Georgia also, you know, coughs up a lot of points. They're giving up 71 a game, and LSU knows how to run up points on teams that are not aggressive under the paint. Now they're a decent rebounding. They're a decent rebounding team. I'll give them that. But I think LSU has a lot of opportunity to really bring it hard to these Georgia Bulldogs. I think one key that really stands out is they're only averaging 11 assists a game. Georgia is per game, so they don't move the ball well. They don't take high percentage shots at all. They're not that aggressive on defense. They're at home. LSU is going to be fired up. They at least want to secure an NIT berth. I like the LSU Tigers today, Perry.
It's a column type situation with these Tigers. It's not that they've turned the corner. They're still just as bad as they were 2 weeks ago. It's just a matter of, is the opponent bad enough for them to get a victory? Anytime they play a high-quality team, they're in trouble. And what I see here are two teams that are only separated by one game.
Right.
But I think I'm going to have to give advantage Tigers because of the home court. And it's just a slight advantage because of that.
Right.
So,
no, I agree. You know, look, they went out there and they lost to Georgia in Athens earlier, and they got beaten pretty thoroughly. I mean, they had, you know, mental errors out of the yin yang.
Right.
You know, so yeah, I agree with you, Perry. I think LSU should win this game if they play like they did against Vanderbilt. I mean, one thing I'll say is that what I'm starting to see with this team is they don't quit. You know, and we've seen that all year. We saw that with Kentucky because remember, just to take Kentucky to overtime, they had to roar back and take that lead. They were trailing. And the same thing with Vanderbilt. So, I think this team is just taking one baby step at a time. You're right, they're not there yet. But this game is going to be a good measuring stick. And then let's see what they can do in the Southeastern Conference Tournament. And let's hope that their big three, Johnny O'Brien, Jordan Mickey, and Jarrell Martin, all come back next year.
Well, I'll tell you what's going to be interesting in that Southeastern Conference Tournament is that they're scheduled to play Missouri in the first round. And
Interesting.
That should be a very good game. And the winner of that gets the grand prize of playing Florida. So
that's the booby prize. That's like when you go and you have like a rubber snake in the box or something like that for the prize.
And currently, the number 1 ranked Florida Gators are ahead of the 25th ranked Kentucky Wildcats, 24-16 in the first half of their contest today.
So that's that's going to be something to watch. Also, speaking of something to watch, we have the number 25 Kentucky Wildcats as they are going to travel out to Gainesville and play the Florida Gators. Look, I drank the Kentucky Kool-Aid last time. I'm not falling for it again. Kentucky is like a nice, shiny car, and it can go really fast and do a lot of neat things, but it's going to cost you a lot on gas mileage, and the maintenance is no joke. I think that Florida has shown they're capable of locking down really any team, especially in the swamp. I think that it's going to be very, very tough for Kentucky. They just, when you put freshmen against a well-seasoned, fundamentally sound team like Billy the Kid has put together out there, Billy Donovan out there in Florida, it just shows. When Florida beat Kentucky in their own house, you look at it, on paper you have, Julius Randle, who has, I think, lived up to a lot of the hype that some folks have had for him, but I think he has a lot of room to grow. I think late in games, his decision-making could use a little work, to say the least. The Harrisons, Andrew Harrison and Aaron Harrison, they are guys who can play in the paint well. They are guys who can hit key shots and make life difficult. I mean, they have guys who are capable of stepping up and making things happen when they need to. But then you look at Florida, and they don't have anybody averaging over 14 points a game, and yet they just lock people down on defense. They have the number 5 defense in the country, only allowing 58 points per game. I don't see how Kentucky, with their kind of up and down, they can beat the teams they're supposed to beat sometimes, but they can sometimes sweat it a little bit. And as far as the big boys, I don't know if Kentucky is going to have the intestinal fortitude that it takes to go to Florida and beat the number 1 team in the country when they got, spanked early this year. And then you're coming off of kind of, questionable losses to South Carolina and I don't know, Perry, and Arkansas in overtime at home. What do you think?
Kentucky has no chance of winning this game.
Wow.
Florida. And, these Florida Gators are just too dominant. They're too mature. They have a senior-laden team where Kentucky has these freshmen. And what they are enduring in Kentucky right now is the harsh reality of how difficult college basketball can be.
That's right.
So, these high schoolers play about 35 games a year. These college guys are playing almost 50.
Right. Especially when you factor in pre- and postseason tournaments, etc.
Right.
Absolutely.
So these guys haven't seen this before, and these college coaches are really good.
Kentucky and Florida will tip off at 12
They've
noon.
already tipped off.
Oh, that's right. It was at 11 o'clock. So it was 12 their time. Yeah. So yeah, they're already in business. So
I'm showing Florida up by 10.
Well, now you had a biased opinion, but look, that's still no surprise. That didn't change. I don't think anyone's opinion. I think we know Florida is the favorite there. Big game today. North Carolina at Duke. The North Carolina Tar Heels have, I think, a sleeping giant has been awakened as North Carolina has been on a roll. Marcus Page and James Michael McAdoo have just spearheaded that team, and but they're going to play at Duke, and I think Duke is kind of the real deal. In spite of losing to Wake Forest on Wednesday night, they're going to be up for this game. The Cameron Crazies will be in effect. Jabari Parker with his 19 points a game and 9 rebounds a game, and Rodney Hood with his baseline inside post presence, I think are going to be a little too much for the Tar Heels. The biggest problem with the Tar Heels is while they can penetrate and drive and dunk, they can't shoot. I mean, they couldn't shoot a barn from 15 feet away with a 44. So I like the Blue Devils in that game today, Perry.
I'm not certain here. This game is at Duke, and that gives me a slight advantage on Duke. Last week, man, we got into a discussion regarding our 4 top teams, and I inadvertently put Duke in there. I don't think Duke's one of the top 4 teams in the country. We omitted Arizona, who is a very good basketball team.
They seem to have recovered from their midseason lulls, which a lot of teams get into.
Right, and those two losses that they had in the middle of the season were right after they lost a very important player.
Right.
So they've learned to kind of play without him, and I look for them to make a serious Final Four run.
I'm going to get in a little more detail. There is one team, I probably would make one substitution at my Final Four, but I'm going to hold my fire until I get to do a little more research. I'm still going to stick with Syracuse. They have a key player, Coleman, who I thought was out for the season. I think he might be coming back for the postseason, but I'm going to do a little more research before revising, but we definitely have to talk about that next week. It will be tournament season.
It will be tournament time, but, these two games here, both these two teams are 23-7. I'm going to go with... You know what? I'm going to go with the hot team, and I'm going to say North Carolina is going to win this game in Cameron Indoor Stadium.
That's a bold prediction, Perry. We'll see. That's one of us is going to be right, one of us is going to be wrong, and someone's going to say, I told you so, which is coming up in just a minute. Also coming up in 14 minutes is Noel Jackson, Music Satisfaction, right here on 96.9 FM WHYR. One more big college game to get today. Number 19, UConn goes to number 11, Louisville. Got to give UConn their props. They scratch and they claw. There's nothing on their stat sheet that jumps off the page, but they do have a great senior point guard, Shabazz Napier, and he's a team leader. Much like we talked about Louisville's senior point guard, Russ Smith, who's really stepping his game up. That's going to be a great matchup in the backcourt. And, of course, UConn beating Cincinnati last Saturday didn't hurt their efforts to climb in the top 25 one iota. Both teams are good defensive teams, but here there are three areas where I think there's a difference. Number one, the game is in Louisville. Number two, I will take Coach Pitino over Coach Calhoun's successor, and I can't remember his name off the top of my head, which goes to show you one reason I take Coach Pitino. But also, both teams' strengths, they're a little stronger on defense than offense, but I like, while Shabazz Napier is more of a scorer and a game breaker, Connecticut's secret on defense is they attack the basketball. They block it, they scratch, they steal, they force you into turnovers. Louisville has a more methodical defense. While they do all those things well, they really, their scheme forces teams into bad shots. And other than Napier, I don't see any big scores with Connecticut, so I'm going to take Louisville in this matchup.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned, though, man, because Russ Smith, after I gave him all those accolades last week on the show, he comes out and lays an egg against Memphis.
A big poached egg, a big Cadbury egg with that bucket, with that bunny.
He looks bad. He looks bad. So I'm going to give Louisville the edge here strictly on Rick Pitino's credit.
Right.
And hopefully he can pull Russ Smith along.
You know what happens when we end up giving people, free on their good credit. You know what happens. But hopefully, you know what? That's me on good credit. Maybe your credit rating system's a lot better than mine. So anyway, look, that leads us right into who'll be right and who'll be wrong and who said I told you so. On the other side of our told you so, we'll talk about a little NBA action and our beloved Saints. But here's our regular segment.
I told you. What did I tell you? Didn't I tell you? 'Cause I told you. And when did I tell you? A long time ago. And what did I say will happen when I told you? Exactly what just happened.
Look, my official prediction is Florida. I'd be crazy to take LSU, or I have to have the fixer hooking me up with some really good odds. But I'm not going to write LSU off in this game like it's a given. Keys to the game for LSU. If they can get successful penetration, and if they can get hot from the outside, then they will have a chance. So I expect a competitive matchup today, although I do think Florida will have enough to outlast the LSU Tigers, because Florida is not a volume-scoring team. If they commit silly fouls early, if they are forced into low-percentage shots, if they turn it over, they're going to be Gator bait.
Right. So I was originally thinking, 20, 25-point blowout here. However, they may keep it close, Eric. They may. It may be 12 to 15 points. And again, I've expressed on this show how I feel about Billy Donovan, and what he does. So, I'm Florida all the way.
Oh yeah. Now we have the Louisville Cardinals facing the Memphis Tigers. So I've got Louisville, and I'm assuming you have Louisville also.
Of course.
All right.
You were wrong.
Number 12 Virginia, number 4 Syracuse.
But I think they fall off again.
Then I'm definitely taking Syracuse in that game.
No.
This Virginia team is a really good basketball team, and they're at home, and that's where I'm going to give them the edge.
Right.
That they are at home over this Syracuse team. I like Syracuse. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But I like this Virginia team as a scrappy team that can pull off some upsets, and they're going to make a deep run in the NCAA tournament.
So there's a whole lot of I told you so there. And I'll tell you, Louisville definitely left a little egg on both of our faces last week. That was the one I kind of took for granted.
Right.
So, moving going on to where the big guys get paid in the National Basketball Association, we've had some good action, but I'll tell you what, there's definitely a dividing line between the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. Now, while the Indiana Pacers going into Friday had the best record in the NBA, tied with the Oklahoma City Thunder, and while I think they're much better than what we saw last night, the Houston Rockets put an absolute thorough beating on the Indiana Pacers. James Harden had 25 points going into the fourth quarter. I couldn't watch anymore when it was about a 30-point game, but that was the worst loss of the year for the Indiana Pacers. But it goes to show there's a contrast between the East and the West, because really in the East you have the Indiana Pacers and the Miami Heat. I think those are our Eastern Conference Finals.
And the Bulls.
And the Chicago Bulls look competent. You know, they look like they have a pulse, but man, it just, like, to quote the rapper Bubba Sparks, it just gets ugly after that. You remember back in the 1990s when the NBA used to have their little promo tagline, NBA action, it's fantastic. This might bring back a memory or two.
Can't touch this.
Jordan in deep on Elo.
Can't touch this.
Drexler.
My music. Hold on. Hold a little bit and let the noise come in.
NBA action is fantastic.
NBA action, it's fantastic. But what has not been so fantastic is the Eastern Conference this year. There are going to be probably 2 sub-500 teams in the playoffs this year. As horrendous as the Knicks are this year, and they've been almost a punchline for talk show hosts, the Knicks aren't even out of it yet. It's just laughable. Well, Louisiana All American Sports has a promo that we think Commissioner Adam Silver should consider for Eastern Conference basketball.
Welcome to tonight's scintillating matchup between the Detroit Pistons and Philadelphia 76ers, Bobcats and Wizards, Cavaliers and Celtics, Knicks and Nets.
There goes the big man to the hole. He missed the layup, but he got his pinky on the way down and will send him to the line. So that will now make him 3 for 9 at the line tonight. Looks like there's a man doing some lines courtside. Another miss. The ball's rolling right up there. There's a frantic scramble, and they're watching it roll harmlessly out of bounds. Really careful. The ball almost hit that kid who was on his iPad playing Angry Birds.
Tonight's attendance a season high 8,455. Thanks to our true fans who have no life for being that number.
So with less than a minute to go, the score 83-75. Let's see if we can get some audio courtside to hear the strategy to make a late rally.
Look, let's wrap this up, guys. I can actually get home early tonight. We're off tomorrow. Sounds good to me. You want me to follow?
Nah, who cares? Just run around like you're trying to catch the guy with the ball, and maybe the clock will run out. Eastern Conference basketball. It's unwatchable. Oh boy, it is unwatchable. I mean, unless you're looking at the Heat or the Pacers or the Bulls, maybe the Nets. The Nets have have actually come to life in the second half of the year, and they have some future Hall of Famers. But it really is unwatchable. I mean, there's the Wizards and Bobcats, and of course the Pelicans. The Pelicans spanked the Bucks last night. I mean, even the Pelicans, who have ping pong balls in their future, they look like they took their foot off the gas because they were bored with the Bucks and then toasted them in the fourth quarter. I mean, they're just that bad. But we do have some good action coming up. We have the Miami Heat as they travel to Chicago to play the Bulls. Look, the Chicago Bulls, I mean, I think other than Greg Popovich, I'm starting to drink the Kool-Aid and think that Tom Thibodeau is the best coach in the NBA. I mean, right up there with he, in my opinion, Eric Spoelstra and Scotty Brooks, just my humble opinion, and Doc Rivers. But just when you have little to work with and you can make something out of it, when you can sow silk from a metaphorical sow's ear, 2 years in a row without Derrick Rose, and they're right up there. Probably one of the top 4 seeds in the Eastern Conference.
After getting rid of Luau Dang.
Right. I mean, right. Which I think that was a strategic trade and a financially sound move, and I think his role was diminishing with the Bulls, and I think that's going to open up Carlos Boozer a little bit more, too. So I think, I like what I see going on. Now, that being said, LeBron James seems like, to borrow a line from Coach Nick Mitchell, the head football coach at Southern Lab, it looks like LeBron James not only is in his 5th gear, but he's kicked it up into a 6th year since the All-Star break, and I don't know if he's going to rip the MVP away from the front-runner Kevin Durant, but he sure is playing like it. He looks like he's trying to catapult the Heat into that top spot. He has been on a tear, dropped 61 points last Monday against the Bobcats. There's another unwatchable team, although they will be in the playoffs in all probability. LeBron James, 27 points a game, 7 rebounds, 6 assists a game. Dwayne Wade, in spite of all of his chronic injuries, is still averaging 19 a night. And Chris Bosh, who's like the Ringo Starr of the Heatles, still has 17 and 7. So as good as the Bulls are playing, I think they're going to have a little bit too much to deal with. Even though they're in Chicago, I like the Heat in that game with LeBron James and his cold, freezing, ice-chilled blood in his veins.
Oh, yeah, I like LeBron James as well, man. Can you imagine this, though, Eric? LeBron James dropped 60 the other night. Kevin Durant is having a phenomenal year. He's putting up 40 almost each night. And guess who has the #1 selling jersey in the NBA?
Not this. It's got to be the King. No?
Jason Collins.
You must mean in the last week, the last month, right?
Yeah.
I believe that. Look, listen up, everybody. As we always said, we always hear all this controversy about the first gay player. He's the first openly gay player, okay? He ain't the first one. I've heard the estimate, I believe, is that about 10% of our population is gay. I could take that, give or take.
Yeah.
10% of the public, they have a trailblazer out there. They ran out and snatched those jerseys off the shelf. Go ahead,
Number 98 for the Brooklyn Nets is selling like hotcakes.
You go ahead and play those 6 minutes a night, Jason. You throw an elbow. Good for you, buddy. We have the Portland Trailblazers on Wednesday going to face the San Antonio Spurs. This is where the Trailblazers seem to kind of hit their ceiling. They can beat the teams that they're supposed to. They can beat the teams that are kind of in their league. When they start getting to those top fours, the Oklahoma City, San Antonio, Houston, teams of that ilk, they seem to have a little trouble. Now, LaMarcus Aldridge, with his 24 points and 11 rebounds a game, he is going to be tough to stop, but the Spurs are just a well-oiled machine. Tony Parker just keeps on ticking, and more importantly, that team is healthy right now. The San Antonio team is healthy. They disposed of the Heat in San Antonio very thoroughly the other night. Tim Duncan, 15 points a game, 10 rebounds a game, 2 blocked shots per game, and 1 Social Security check every month. I think that that team is just going to be hard to beat at home on Wednesday on national television, so I like the Spurs in that game.
Yeah, this Phoenix team is a young team, man. I mean, not Phoenix, Portland. They're a young team, and that game is where?
It's in San Antonio. It's at the AT&T Center.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Spurs.
So, look, we just have a couple of minutes left, but we got to discuss one, important note for local listeners. Our New Orleans Saints, championship teams are always going to get broken up, and it looks like they're just kind of whittling down more and more members of that team. Jonathan Vilma and Will Smith and others were released early this year, and then we got yet another dose of harsh, cold reality. Harsh, cold reality early this week. We had the Saints, as they let go, they released a longtime wide receiver, Lance Moore. By my estimation, I think he was the last member of the pre-Katrina New Orleans Saints on that team, and he was let go. That was obviously to clear cap space. He would have counted almost $6 million against the cap. They got to re-sign Jimmy Graham, and I know they have other priorities. Brian De La Puente, they'd at least like to make a capable offer to, possibly Zach Strief. Lance Moore was declining in productivity. It just wasn't working. The one that shocked a lot of people was the release of Darren Sproles. Now, Sproles missed a lot of games last year because of injury, and a few the last couple of years. He's a little smaller. But he was going to count almost $5 million against the cap, and he's going to be 31 years old this year. He did not want to restructure. The Saints couldn't trade him. If you want to keep your future Jimmy Graham, sometimes you have to let go of the present. A lot of coaches said, I'd rather let go of a player 1 year too early than a year too late.
Well, I mean, here's the key. Pierre Thomas may go.
He's not safe either.
Right.
But he only counts $3 million.
Right. But, I mean, just from a fan perspective, these are fan favorites that we've grown to love, and they're out of here. So, just like us, it is that time. Louisiana All American Sports Radio. You're listening to WHYR Baton Rouge Community Radio, 96.9 FM. As we always say around this time, ADT, JNS. Love you.
Have a good